Hey everyone, I'm here today from RSM. We are an accountancy practice based in the Northwest. Myself and Charlotte will both introduce ourselves as we start our presentation, so you know sort of a bit of background about us. We're going to talk today just about the sort of careers you can get at RSM. I'm going to start off by introducing my colleague Charlotte, who's going to speak to you about being a graduate at RSM, working in the audit team.
Hi everyone, so yeah, as Alex explained, my name's Charlotte Savage and I am an audit supervisor with RSM at our Stoke office. Let me click the next slide, Alice. So just to sort of summarise the role of our department, the idea of an audit is that we make sure that the financial statements that a company produce are free from any material misstatement, which basically means we make sure that any figures in the accounts that they present don't have any significant errors in them that would change a person's decisions, like investment decisions they made based on looking at the accounts. A lot of the work I do, obviously not at the moment because we're all working remotely, but the majority of the time we spend on site with clients rather than being in the office, which I think is one of the perks of the job because you're always somewhere different, and with various members of the team you're never working with the same group of people for too long. In the first 1 to 2 years of being with us, a lot of your time will be spent attending stock takes, particularly around the end of the year or the end of March. That tends to be when a lot of clients have their year ends. And then we also have 3 stages to an audit. We have planning, which is where we discuss with clients things that have happened in the year that would affect our testing. We just get a better understanding to be able to plan our testing in a way that works well with their systems. Then you have execution, which is sort of the main bulk of the work. And then you have a review where the partner who signs off the audit and the accounts reviews the file to say that he's happy with the work we've done. And then just a little idea on the types of clients I've worked with. As you can imagine, locally there's quite a large betting company, so I work with them quite a lot. In Crewe we also have a really large fuel and telecommunications solution provider, so I work with them as well. Colleges and academies, manufacturing companies, researchers, there's a few we've worked at on the Kiel campus before actually, Cobra Biologics to name one. And then if you want to click the next slide, Alice. So just an idea, obviously one of the main elements of working with us at RSM is that you'd be working towards your ACA qualification to become a chartered accountant. So just an idea of where I'm at the moment, I am what's called part qualified, which means I've completed the first 2 levels of exams, which are the sort of technical exams, and then now I have 3 left to go, which are sort of more scenario based and kind of pulling all your knowledge together, so I should hopefully qualify in November. Generally how it will work, you'll do 2 exams at a time and you'll have a teaching period of between 3 to 7 days depending on which exam it is. Some of the ones you'll do at the start don't have long teaching periods because they're quite short multi-choice exams, whereas the larger ones that you'll do sort of further down the line that are 2 or 3 hour written exams, they have longer teaching periods. You'll then have a period of time where you go away, go back to work, and then you'll come back towards the time of your exam again. You'll have a recap day online that, regardless of COVID, always happens online, and it's basically just a really quick fire through revision day of what you've studied so far, just to refresh your mind, because you'll have had a little bit of a time delay between when you attended college and when you come back. And then you'll have an actual revision slot of time, which tends to be 2 weeks before your exam. And again, the length of it will just depend on the exam you're doing. But that is sort of a mix between exam question practice, and also depending on how technical the exam is, you'll go over certain aspects of the course again that are quite tricky, and you'll again have a lecturer to be able to answer any questions that you have. All our study materials are now online. We use a provider called BPP in the Stoke office, and they're actually based in Manchester. So when we're not working remotely, we go on campus in Manchester, which is actually quite a nice thing to do, because you sort of make a group of friends with your colleagues that you're going to college with at the same time, similar to you guys doing now at uni. And then in addition to the exams, you also have 6 soft skill activities, which 2 of them are presentations and then 4 of them are essays. And they just basically are like, give an example of when you're a team leader, an example of when you helped your firm in cost cutting measures or to be more efficient, and just sort of reflective pieces of writing like that. And I think probably one of the best parts about doing your ACA qualification at the same time as working in a department like audit, where you have exposure to so many different clients, is that the on-the-job work that you do really helps with your understanding of the syllabus. So the 2 tie hand in hand really, really well. If you go on to the next slide, please, Alice. And then just a little bit of an overview of what life was like at RSM, and many of the examples I'm showing you on the screen were pre-pandemic. So we had things like a new starters meal. Our Christmas party every year is usually at the Bet 365 stadium, where we have an open bar at the start of the evening, which is quite nice. And then we follow that with a 3-course meal, and then everybody sort of has a bit of a dance on the dance floor with the band and everything. We also arrange, or the new starters for the year, sorry, arrange an audit Christmas party. Now this usually happens in April because generally January to March can be quite a busy season for audit with all the December year ends. So this usually happens in April, and when I was part of the new starters that arranged it, we arranged a quiz in a secret bar in Congleton. It was really fun. Various after work drinks. We also annually have a day at the Uttoxeter races, which is quite nice. And a year and a half ago, no, sorry, yeah, about 2 years ago actually, we had an inter-office sports day at the Chester County Cricket Club, and then we also have office quizzes. At the moment, we're having regular Friday drinks virtually. We also arranged catch-up calls with sort of small groups of the team with the new starters, so they felt like they could get to know everyone a little bit better. We hosted a virtual award ceremony where we sort of handed out some funny awards, and we also had a Secret Santa that we did virtually as well, and we just sort of posted presents from Amazon, and I got some gin and tonic water and that, so that was quite good. And then in terms of further opportunities, just a couple of things I do that are sort of voluntary around my role. I'm currently an employee representative, which just means I gather a lot of the feedback from how the team are feeling at the moment and give it back to sort of some of the partners and other people higher up in the office and in the region, just for them to understand what challenges we're facing at the moment. And one of the things we noted out of that really early on is that people really wanted because when we worked in the office, we were used to having 2 or 3 screens, whereas when everyone started to work from home, some people had 2 screens if they had one already, but a lot of people were down to 1, and we really thought that was sort of impacting our efficiency. So now everyone is back to having 2 screens, because IT sort of did a rollout where we went to the office in time slots to go and pick up a screen, so that was good. I was also for a while the IDEA software license holder, which is basically like Excel on steroids. Our American offices, all of them use it, similar to how we use Excel, but it's quite an expensive software. So in the UK at the moment, we just sort of have 1 to 2, depending on the size of the office, users per the office, and then you just give your request to them, and anything that's too big for Excel to handle, then we just pop through IDEA. Getting involved in events like these just to sort of talk about my job and answer any questions that anybody has. Again, just harping on about audit, because that's the department I'm in, so it's the easiest one for me to talk about. But I think one of the big pros of audit is that you have so much client interaction, and it's right from the beginning. Within my first week of being within the department, I'd been to 2 different client sites, and I was talking to finance directors, which is obviously someone, when you first join, that's quite a big step. But you have the support of everybody who's on site with you. So yeah, we also have international secondments, one of which I'm debating at the moment. We have an office right on Miami Beach, which you can imagine is quite appealing. Not that there's anything wrong with sunny Stoke, but if I had the choice. And then we also have a lot of exciting progression opportunities in terms of your role in your career. And I obviously experienced that with even, sort of during the pandemic, I still was promoted to a supervisor. So obviously comes with a nice pay rise, and my level of responsibility has increased quite a lot as well. And then if you go on the next slide, thanks Alice, just to sort of summarise the things I enjoy and give you an idea of some of the challenges there are with the role. So the things I enjoy is the team that I'm part of. Everybody's really social and really friendly. And I've developed quite a few genuine friendships, that people that I would consider friends outside of work, which is quite nice. Traveling all around the region and meeting new clients. I've had overnight stays in Wales. I've had overnight stays in London, obviously not recently. And being able to work with the full hierarchy of a client's business, from a CEO right down to a management accountant, I find really interesting. There's continued progression with financial reward, even during the current climate. As I explained last November, it was now, I was promoted to supervisor, which again, it comes with the next point of being given that element of a responsibility. So now I am responsible for certain audit files getting finished, and then having a fully funded and well-respected qualification. And that goes right down to things like your train ticket, and the cost of parking your car at Stoke train station. All of that is paid for by the firm, or you pay for it first and then you get you claim it back. And all your exams and everything there funded by the firm. So my qualification, bar the expensive Cafe Nero that I have every time I go to Manchester, hasn't cost me a penny, which was really great. Some of the challenges I face, I think one to sort of understand and figure out how you will tackle it best right from the beginning, is maintaining a work-life balance, especially when you have exams coming up. It's just being able to maintain the balance between still being able to deliver your role really well, and also making sure you're up to date with your studies and you're on track with your exams. But it's one of those where we've all done it. Everyone in the department has been through the qualification. So anytime you think you're struggling with the balance, or you think there's a job and you need more time to study or whatever, we have flexi time that we build up whenever we do any overtime, and we can use that around our exam times. And all of the managers in our department are always willing to talk if you feel like you need more time or you're struggling. And another one was having no previous experience in accounting, but maintaining professionalism and giving a good impression in front of the clients was something I probably struggled with a little bit at first, because my degree was finance, investment and risk. So obviously I had some finance background, but zero knowledge about accounts. So at the start, trying to maintain a bit of a poker face in front of the clients, that they still felt like I was professional and I knew what I was doing, was probably a little bit tricky. But again, you're always on site with other people, so if there's any point you're struggling, you don't understand what the client's saying, there's always someone there to support you and sort of have the conversation with you. So yeah,
thank you. I'm just going to move on to my slide. So I'm Alice. I work as a recruitment and HR assistant in the Northwest. So I get involved with a lot of events like these. I look after all the students who join us. I sort of get involved with getting people booked onto assessment centres, and I do get involved with a lot of the assessment centres as an assessor. So some of you might eventually see my face again if you get onto an assessment centre, which would be fantastic. I'm going to talk to you about sort of how to apply for a role so you can eventually be in a career like Charlotte, who's doing really well. So first of all, these are our offices. The offices I look after are Northwest offices. So we have 6 offices in the Northwest, which is Manchester, Preston, Chester, Liverpool, Stoke, and our Crewe office. Obviously Charlotte's based in our Stoke office, and I will talk to you about our Crewe office at the end, because it's slightly different to our RSM offices. So the application process. So our intake opens in September. So we have been open for our August 2020 roles for a couple of months now, but we still do have some vacancies. We do a smaller intake in January, so obviously all the students from January 2021 have all started. So now we're just continuing to fill all of our August roles. The number of roles vary by location, and once a vacancy is filled, it will close. So if you sort of come away from today feeling interested and wanting to apply, I just advise getting your application in as soon as possible. So the first stage is applying. We have an application form that you need to fill out, just to pop all your information on there. We do require 112 UCAS points for the majority of our roles. There are a few that require less, so just make sure that you're getting that filled out, and then put in whatever you predicted on your degree on there as well. So once you've filled that out, you move on to the online assessment. So with the online assessment, this is a literacy and numeracy test that you do, and you get sent your score sort of automatically, and you get to know if you pass straight away. If there's any parts you struggled on, whether you've passed or failed, the parts that you've not done so well on, you do get quite specific feedback, so you know exactly what you need to work on. Once you've passed your online assessment, you then get invited to do a video interview. Sorry, I just needed to add as well, with the assessment and the video interview, for both of those, you have a certain amount of time you need to get them done in. I think it's normally around 5 days or a week. So just making sure as soon as you've seen that email that you make sure you get time in to get it done. So then, yeah, once you've passed that and you move on to your video interview, this is a pre-recorded video interview, so you will just do that at home yourself. There's 5 questions, so the first one is not marked. It's just a warm-up question, so the person assessing it can sort of get to know your levels of engagement. And then the other 4 questions are all strength-based, and that means that we really want to see an example from you if possible. And like I mentioned, your levels of engagement is also scored, as well as your quality of your answer. So just making sure that you're coming across really engaged, you sound interested, you're looking at the camera, you're not sort of getting distracted and looking around. And also with the video interview, you are given 2 minutes to answer your question. So that definitely gives you enough time to get an example in there to back up what you're saying. Once you've sort of delivered your answer, given an example and summarised, if you haven't used up the 2 minutes, that's absolutely fine. 2 minutes are there for if you need it, but if you've answered your question in a minute or a minute and a half, then that's fine. Just move on to the next one, because once you've given a really good answer, sometimes they can be a little bit diluted if people think, oh, I need to keep talking, I need to fill the 2 minutes. That's not what the 2 minutes is there for. So if you think, oh no, I've covered everything, then that's fine. Move on to your next one. Just making sure that you're sort of giving enough information in there as well. So once you pass your video interview, the next stage would be to be invited onto an assessment centre. So with the assessment centres, these are all running at different times. So sometimes there can be a slight wait, depending on when you get your video interview in to when the next assessment centre is. So don't worry if you don't hear back straight away. You won't have been forgotten about. It just your video needs to be reviewed, and then you just need to wait for the next assessment centre. As I mentioned, roles get filled. Once a role is filled, it gets closed. So if you submitted your video interview the evening before an assessment centre, the role gets filled on that one, then it's very unfortunate. It does mean you miss out, but you will get contacted to see if you want to move to a different role if you've passed. So fingers crossed we can find something else that you're interested in, or it gives you enough time to know that the role has been filled so you can carry on looking elsewhere. With the assessment centres, so you will get given pre-work to do ahead of the assessment centre to book on your place. The pre-work are all different depending on the role you've applied for. So say if you applied for audit, the pre-work will be specific to audit, but if you've applied for tax, you'll get specific tax pre-work to do. You'll also be asked to send over your documents, so such as your right to work, so that might be your passport or your birth certificate. And for some roles you do require a driving licence. It is specified on the job description. It isn't many of the roles, but if you require this, then you need to also send these over to get your space on your assessment centre. The thing that I often like to remind people at events like these is that when you're booking onto the assessment centre, it is a first impression. Although the person in the student recruitment team you're submitting your pre-work to and your documents to will not be the person assessing you, we still do take into account if you've met the deadline, because if you've not met the deadline, it's not a very good first impression. So just making sure that you're getting things in on time. So once your pre-work's in and your documents are in and you've sort of secured your place on the assessment centre, the day before you'll get sent over a time and a Teams link, because these are all still being done virtually. If you sort of work part-time or if you've got lectures and you need to know a specific time, then you can ask that, because we generally will know if it's an afternoon or a morning assessment centre. We just might not know your exact time, because it just depends on how many assessors we've got. But if you need to know it, there's no harm in asking. We can definitely try our best to give you as an accurate slot as possible. So once you're on your assessment centre, you've submitted everything. On the day, you will be assessed by someone who's in the relevant team to what you've applied for. It might be that someone like myself and a manager are seeing you, or it might be that you get 2 managers to meet at the assessment centre stage. But it'll always be someone from that team. So again, it's really important you make those really good first impressions. We do a task with you that includes your pre-work. So this is sort of talking through your pre-work and then answering some questions on it. And then we do a strength-based interview. So this works the same as the video interview, in that you're assessed on your engagement as well as the quality of your answer. So again, making sure you're looking at the camera, you seem interested, tone of voice and body language is really important, and that you're giving a good quality answer, ideally with an example to back up what you're saying. Even if you're not asked to give an example, always try and back up why you believe you'd be strong at whatever you're being asked. Once you've completed the assessment centre, we often do a partner meet and greet. So this is a bit more of an informal stage, and it won't be on the same day. It'll be on a day after, or a couple of days after, just to meet one of the partners from the department as an opportunity for you to get to know a little bit more. And then hopefully after that we would get an offer out if you were successful. I think I've covered everything there, but obviously we've got the Q&A at the end, so if anybody wants to ask questions about the application process, I'm more than happy to do that. I was just going to talk through our values. So these are the sort of things that I'd advise looking at for if you're applying for RSM or any business. It's always worth looking at the business's values. So ours are respect, integrity, teamwork, excellence and stewardship. We focus on these, making sure that it's something that people are working towards day to day. We focus on these for praising team members as well. So we have a high five scheme, which is basically like a little e-card we send out. So these, you can send someone a respect high five or an excellence high five, depending on what they've done. So it's something that's sort of bred into day-to-day life at RSM. So what we're looking for in people who apply for us. So we're a fast growing firm with big ambitions, and we embrace change. We never stand still, and we're looking for passionate graduates who can help us on this journey. So personality is a key point for us. The reason why RSM is doing so well and the clients keep coming back to us is because of the people that work for us. So like Charlotte said, she gets to go and meet with key people at the client's business, and that the clients really like that they get to meet people, and that we're quite a local firm, especially in Stoke, where we've got a lot of other accountants are based, in like the Londons and the Manchesters. It's really nice that we've got a local presence. So it's really important that we find people who have that personality fit. And that's why when we score you on your video assessment and your assessment centre, we look at your engagement as well as the quality of your answer, just to make sure that you're showing that personality coming across too. We want people who care. So you're going to work with a lot of different people throughout your time at RSM. So it might not necessarily just be people in your direct team. You might also work with people in other teams. It might be that you're working on a client's accounts, and it might be that they've recently done their tax with us as well. So it might be that you're working with people in tax as well, just to find out more information about that client. So we want people who care and that want to do well, and sort of strive for the business to continue growing and make a positive impact on everything we do. We also look for team players. So like Charlotte said, you can get involved in a lot of different aspects of work. So you work in a team on all your jobs, but also team players getting involved with other things as well. We do groups such as study groups for all our new starters, so that's really good. If there's something you're struggling with, help yourself and to help others, be a team player and speak out if you need help, or offer to help a colleague if they're really struggling with an exam you may have passed. So yeah, definitely team players and people that can sort of adapt to different situations as well. I touched on this before, but I'll just run through it again. So our entry requirements for our roles, we look for 112 UCAS points across your 3 A levels, and degrees can come from any background. You don't have to have done accounting or anything related to accounts. We have lots of people that come from different backgrounds, so it really doesn't matter what degree you've done or what grade you've got on your degree. As long as you've got a predicted grade, then that's fine. I'm just going to finish off my piece talking about FHL, which is our crew office. So FHL are part of RSM, and they are a NetSuite provider, and they partner with a choice of growing ambitious businesses. FHL work collaboratively, I can't get my words out, with businesses, whether they're small, mid-market or enterprise, to deliver the right solution for their needs and to maximise the value for their investment. So we work, FHL are part of RSM, but they've kept their own branding. The people that work at FHL are not accountants, so there's no need for them to be called RSM, but they are part of our region. So I do help look after the student recruitment as well. We haven't got the roles live for 2021 yet, but the type of roles we would look for are sort of developers, trainee consultants, NetSuite consultants, quality analysts, support analysts, and project management coordinators. So it's worth keeping an eye out for roles like that going live if sort of accounting isn't the route you want to go down, but more of a tech route. We do an intake for these roles as well. So I'm happy to answer questions about that, but I don't have a release date for roles for there yet, unfortunately. So but I've linked the website up there, so you can keep an eye on them going live. I think we also normally share them on Indeed as well, and we work closely with Keel, so would make sure that that's shared with the recruitment team there. That's everything from me. So we're happy to start questions and answers. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see what's going on as well, if that's okay. But I think Sarah's going to manage the Q&A if anybody has anything they'd like to ask.
Okay, well, sorry to interrupt, Alex.
No, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Apologies for an echo from my end. I don't know where that's come from. We've actually had quite a few coming through since 10 past, so obviously people have been really interested in what you've both been saying, so that's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to start with a very, very specific one from a student, which I think is probably the more complex one to answer, so I'm really sorry, this might be the hardest question first. So I have a student who worked for 7.5 years before they did their master's degree, and they want to know, are there alternative profiles other than the graduate entry routes, and they're particularly interested in business analysis. I did say this is a hard question to ask. I don't know if it was the graduate route or if there'd be alternative options they could look at.
No, it's fine for me. I actually look after experience hire roles as well, luckily, so I can answer that. Yes, if there's, so the graduate scheme is very structured, so if you are wanting to go down that sort of route, then yeah, you can apply and that's fine. But if you're going to finish your masters and you're wanting to go and just start applying for jobs, then we do have our experience hire roles that are all advertised. It's not as structured, and we do offer progression, but it's not as structured as the graduate route. So you'd have to establish that once you start in the role with. If there's a certain qualification you want to do, does this role offer study support and things like that? But yeah, we have experience hire roles. They're just advertised on our website with our trainee roles, but it's just under experience hire. So yeah, that's definitely something I'd be interested in seeing applicants for as well.
So the recommendation is keep an eye on your website and see the kind of roles that come up and what you're asking for those specific roles. I guess that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, same with so if you wanted to apply for that through RSM or FHL, they should both be on there. So
fantastic. That makes it nice and easy, because actually there is a question later about vacancies, which I'll come back to in case I've missed anything. But obviously the graduate vacancies you always share with us, don't you? And we put on Career Hub.
Yeah.
And then your website is always bang up to date as well, isn't it? So it is quite easy to know what's going on with your recruitment. Fantastic. This is a really good question, I think, and I think this is something that students who haven't done finance or maths related degrees sometimes worry about. I know Charlotte did a numerical degree and was a bit worried about going into accountancy and credibility sometimes, so this is a good question. How might a non-finance graduate better prepare themselves for the application process?
Shall I have a go at that one?
Obviously,
I was a finance graduate, but I can understand the aspect of, you know, your degree not tying in exactly with the role. All I would say, my advice is just make sure your sort of, I don't know, GCSE level maths is up to par, just to get started with. Because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Alice, but I think some of the tests you do at the start, there is some sort of maths competency within it, and obviously in your role day to day being with, you know, an accountancy firm, you will do some, you know, maths and things, but I wouldn't say it's anything to be really nervous about, because there's quite a few members in my team. In fact, there's a boy called Isaac who's now qualified, and he's an assistant manager, and he studied a chemistry degree, so nothing at all even close to what he does now, and he still got on really well. Part of the process at the start is, again, depending on where the COVID situation is, but when I started, I went down to London for 4 or 5 days, I think it was, with the whole student cohort that had started at the same time, and we did like a bookkeeping course just to get like the basic levels of accountancy down, and that really helps. And then just day to day when you're doing the job, you kind of brush up your maths. But all I would say is just bear in mind at the start there is a small maths test, so just brush up on maybe like your GCSE maths.
I think the other thing is as well that during our recruitment process, if you make it to assessment centre, the assessors don't know what degree you've got. You could have a sports degree or a finance degree, and they don't know that unless if you're sort of telling them that in your answers when you're giving an example. But I think some of the best people I've ever assessed don't just give academic answers. They sort of give answers about, oh, I'm in a band, or I'm in a sports team, or I've got this part-time job, and it's stuff like that that brings your personality through. So I think just don't worry about it. I think, like Charlotte says, brush up on your basic maths, try and get through that first stage. But I think we put a big stance on the fact that we don't mind if you have an accounting degree or not. So I think don't worry about it, and just make sure you use really good examples in your answers, and you'll be absolutely fine. Yeah.
That's really reassuring, because traditionally accountants have come from all sorts of degree backgrounds, haven't they? So it's not actually incredibly unusual, but it's really reassuring. Could I just make a quick shout out? I'm not on commission for this, but Bite Size GCSE Maths on BBC is quite good if you just want to go over the basics. And Clear Careers Online, we have numeracy tests you can practice as well that might be helpful. And come and see Careers and Employability, because we'll talk to you about how to frame your motivation and why you're interested in accountancy, and perhaps get your confidence levels up a little bit, which is, confidence is a big part of it, isn't it? So I've got a question. You did actually talk about UCAS points after somebody had asked a question about it. So because this is a particular concern, I'm going to come back to it if that's all right. Because the student asking the question is predicted a first class degree in accounting, but doesn't have the UCAS points you're looking for. Does that automatically exclude them, or are there other factors you take into consideration when you're screening?
If you had extenuating circumstances and something had gone on during your sort of A-levels and there was a reason why you didn't have the number, then we always take extenuating circumstances into account. If you don't have 112 UCAS points but you have 96, we do have internal audit roles that will allow for 96. But if you have less than that and no extenuating circumstances, then your application wouldn't be able to be processed, because we need to have those UCAS points, unfortunately. But like I say, if there's a reason why you think I struggled during that time, then absolutely let us know about it, because we have a lot of people that we've brought in that there was a reason at the time why they didn't quite meet what they needed.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. That's great. The next question has been half answered because we've talked about where you advertise your vacancies already, and you've sort of addressed this, but it's really nice to make it explicit. A student wants to know what time of the year are your jobs normally advertised?
So they go live in September for our January intake. So right, it seems so far away. So September 2021, so September coming up, we will advertise our January 2022 and August 2022 vacancies. So for if you are graduating this time and you're looking for a role to start in August this year, they've already been online since September 2020. Gosh, that's confusing. So I'm not the accountant. Yeah, I think that answers the question. Sometimes roles get added. So like sometimes we fill roles and they decide there's room in the budget for more. So it's definitely worth keeping check on it. Don't just think in September, oh, is that it? Just keep checking on it just in case if there's something specific you're looking for. One thing to definitely make a note of though, we do only take one application per intake. So if you think, oh, I like the sound of audit, tax and accounts, can't decide which one I'll apply for all three, unfortunately it doesn't work like that and you will have to pick which one you want. If you say you applied for one and you unfortunately failed your video interview, then that's sort of the end of the road until the next year. You can reapply in the next intake, but you couldn't reapply for this intake. You just get one application per intake.
Fantastic. That's really helpful. Thank you. I've just had a little prompt actually because I've messed up. I didn't introduce myself to the students, so they've probably worked out who I am by now because my name's at the bottom of the picture, but I'm Sarah and I'm one of the careers consultants in careers and employability. So when I'm referring you to resources at Keele, that's how I know about the resources at Keele. And I also know we've worked with RSM for a number of years, haven't we? So we've got a very established relationship. Yeah, got another really good question because as you know, many degrees now, particularly the accounting degrees, have accreditation as part of the degree pathway. So one of the students wants to know, do the exams change if you already have accreditation from one of the Chartered Institute Accountancy organisations?
They don't. We don't offer exemptions just because it doesn't help you. Like along the road, you're not going to be repeating any exact same exams, but you need to cover off all of the modules to help you learn the role. I know Charlotte will vouch for that. It is helpful to get the full picture rather than us say, oh, don't worry about that exam, you don't have to do it. It's more helpful and beneficial for you to learn as well as sit the exams and do the work all together to get the all-round picture. So no, it must be disappointing for people when they've done a degree based on that, but we don't offer them for anyone, so it's a fair process for everyone.
I would just add on that one, the way the exams work in the ACA qualification is that you have 3 levels. So you have certificate, then professional, then advanced, and the first 2 certificate and professional level are very much hand in hand. For the majority of them, there is one certificate exam that will match up then with the professional exam, and the minute you walk into the classroom for the professional one, you're told, like, we are basing this that you remember everything from the certificate one. So an exemption really wouldn't help you. If anything, it would just do the opposite, because all that would happen in your professional one is that you're just giving yourself that little bit more revision to do that anyone who had already done the certificate one wouldn't have to. So I would actually take it as a positive that the firm wants you to do all of them, just because when you then get higher up the scale, it just helps you so much.
This is an interesting question. You were talking about the assessment centres and having to provide, say, a birth certificate or a passport. So I've got a question asking if you employ international students.
Yeah, so we do sponsorship. Sometimes it can be a little bit of a lengthy process, just because we have to get things sorted. But yeah, we did. I think there's a couple in our January intake who are international students, and it was a little bit longer than it takes to get somebody onboarded that doesn't need visa sponsorship, but we got it done in time. So yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That's a good news story. That's what we like to hear. I'm going to come back to FHL, but I've got another question around UCAS points again. Now I think IB is International Baccalaureate. So it says, how are IB UCAS requirements calculated? Because of course you do 6 subjects in International Baccalaureate and only 3 at A-level. But I believe there is a national equivalency, but I'm not expert on this, so please help me.
My best advice would be to go on the UCAS calculator on the UCAS website. And then if you still can't work that out, when you do our application form, you can put other and just fill out what you've got. If it's not the normal A-level or BTECs, you can put other, and it's like a free text box and it lets you explain what you've got. So as long as if you could sort of say it equates to this. And then for if any reason somebody had studied abroad, like done their A-levels in another country, so they don't have A-levels or BTECs or anything like that, but you've got your degree, then that's fine. As long as it's explained, then it wouldn't hinder you in any way. We just check that you're doing a degree.
That's great. Yeah, there's actually another question around that, but you've actually just answered that question.
Oh,
if it doesn't come into the UCAS tariff, there's an alternative on the applications. That's
really so you just put other. There's a tick box that say did you complete your A-levels in the UK? So you obviously wouldn't tick that.
Yeah.
And then for all the A-level questions, you just put other. I think it lets you do a free text box that says this is what I've got, and then when it gets to your degree, but obviously you're doing that in the UK because you're here, so you can just explain what degree you're doing. So hope that helps.
I've learned something now. That's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So I am going to come back to FHL, but I'm doing the RSM ones first. There's a question here about whether the annual salary stays the same over the years that you go through the grad scheme.
No, good news, it increases. Yeah, we do salary review every year in October, so that should go up, falling in line with promotions and doing your exams. So that's the answer you wanted to hear, that it does increase.
Okay, so the good news keeps on coming, doesn't it? So that's good. This is really, really interesting. This is quite a probing question. Was there an aspect of your work that each of you thought you didn't know you would be able to do, but you could do?
Oh.
Is it cliche to say all of it at the start? I think at the start when I first got offered the job, I was just like, oh my goodness, like I didn't think I'd be able to do it, having no accounting knowledge, and sort of at the start going down to London for the accountancy kind of crash course. I was just like, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do this, but you can. And I would just sort of say to anyone who struggles, and I can understand, because obviously I was promoted to supervisor in November, and I still feel like now, if I'm honest, I don't think I can be a supervisor, but you can, and you just need to sort of reach out to anybody else in the team if you know you came on board and you sort of struggled with the confidence aspect a little bit, because everybody's been there. I mean, I had a call with one of the managers in my team last week and explained, I'm just struggling a little bit with being a supervisor now and the responsibility. I feel a bit overwhelmed, and she sort of said to me, I felt the exact same when I was promoted to manager the year before. So everyone's been there, everyone's done that, and I would just say just reach out if you're feeling a little bit nervous, but just remember that everybody in that room has felt how you feel at some point, so it's quite comforting to know that, I think.
Yeah, fabulous. And Alice?
For myself, I came from a retail background before I got into recruitment, so I only had 1 year's recruitment experience before I got this role. I'd done a HR qualification, but I'd never worked in HR before, and I definitely the thing I recruit for was office support roles. I didn't know anything about practice recruitment. I didn't know what auditors did or what financial services was or internal audit. I had no idea, and I think the nice thing is that everyone's so friendly. Like, they just don't mind if you just ask them, like, what do you actually do? What is an audit? Like, what do you have to do day to day? But it's things like this as well, like this presentation. Like, I never had to do anything like this in my previous roles, but there's so many soft skill courses you can book onto and things like that. Like, I went on like a presentation skills, and I've been on interview skills and maximizing your confidence courses, and I've really grown as a person since I've worked here. It's definitely like the career I want to do, although I can't vouch for the graduate scheme. I can vouch for the graduate scheme because it's great, but I'm not on the graduate scheme or anything. I just support staff at the firm. But I don't feel like you don't get treated any differently because everybody's so friendly. Even if I need to speak to a partner or a director about something, like we're all working together. So yeah, it's a nice feel, a really nice firm to work for.
So I'm going to go, thank you, that's really, really helpful, because those personal perspectives make such a difference when you're trying to get an insight, aren't they? Yeah. I have got more RSM questions, but I've kept the poor person asking questions about FHL for a while, so I'll go to FHL. A student wants to know if they have graduate training schemes as well, specifically for FHL.
I think last time we recruited, we just were looking for placement roles, but because we haven't got them advertised yet, I wouldn't like to definitely say that's the case this year. The only thing I can do is that I promise I will get in touch with the student recruitment team when they go live, so then they get advertised on the Careers Hub, and that they obviously will be on our websites as well. But I couldn't answer, sorry, I'm not 100% sure this year what we're doing.
I do know that previously they've offered positions for when you graduate to students coming towards the end of the placement if they feel like they've performed really well. So to anyone who's sort of considering it and maybe doesn't graduate till next year, or doesn't, you know, want to go into a full-time job straight away or whatever, I would just say getting your foot in the door and doing a placement is a really good way to get in at FHL, because you know, they're growing quickly, but they're still a small enough team that if you perform well, you will be noticed and you will be offered a role at the end. It's actually my dad who works at FHL, and I know because he deals with some of those roles and the office and things, so I've heard about quite a few of them, and he talks about them quite a lot. So I would just say if you're thinking about FHL and want to just try it out, then doing one of the placements is a fantastic way, and a lot of the time it can end you up with an offer, and then if you're still a year away from graduating, you're ahead of the game then.
Yeah, it's nice sometimes when when you go back to your third year that you got a part-time job as well, and earn a little bit of extra money while you're working, and you're keeping your sort of foot in the door with a career as well. So yes, thank you for that, Charlotte. It's definitely a good scheme to get onto.
That's great. That's really helpful advice. That's really, really useful. So I've got quite a probing question here. With the values which you showed up on the PowerPoint, do you feel they're met and seen between the employees? As from experience, sometimes accounting firms can be very competitive.
If I just start with my team, I would just, the big thing I would say on that one is my career progression has absolutely nothing to do with the other people in my team's career progression. So there's no sense of competitiveness, because when I was promoted to supervisor, it wasn't the case that, you know, only 2 or 3 people can, so you need to be the best 2 or 3 people in the team. You are assessed individually on how you're performing. So as long as you're performing really well, it really doesn't matter what the people around you are doing. So I, in the sort of 2.5 years that I've been there now, haven't once experienced any kind of competitiveness, because at the end of the day, especially when you're working on an audit, when you're working together in the team to get an audit finished, you all have the same end goal, and you all want it to go well, and you all want to finish, you know, on the deadline. So the sense of competitiveness, just speaking in the audit department, I've never noticed it being there at all, which I think is really nice.
Fantastic. That's very positive. You got anything to add to that, Alice? Because obviously you're both working in different departments.
Yeah, I think for my department in the HR team, like the teamwork element is huge. Like we all work together on stuff, and like, say for example, if I couldn't attend today, I know that one of my colleagues would join for me. That we wouldn't want like you guys to miss out, and we wouldn't want the firm to miss out on an opportunity like joining events like this. So I know that it would only take for me to send an email to my colleagues to say, look, I'm sorry, I can't do it, I've got X going on. Can someone else join, and it'd get picked up straight away. So it's the teamwork element I find across other service lines as well. So if I'm booking an assessment centre and one of the assessors has to go to a client meeting and they can't join it, someone else will pick it up. Like they'll say, oh, if you can't do it, I'll do it for you. Like it just gets picked up quickly. So the teamwork element is huge in the firm.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. It's a question really worth asking, because I think a lot of organisations showcase their values almost as a recruitment tool, and particularly now that social values are becoming so much more important in a time of a pandemic. So actually that's quite an important question to ask and to assess for yourselves as applicants as well, isn't it? When you have contact with firms, and you can actually make your own judgments as well.
I would just say, just quickly on that notion of, you know, support in social values in the pandemic. I think RSM recently have really stepped up to the plate in terms of addressing the fact that it is harder for everyone being at home so much, and we have mental health champions for our office. We have time to talk events that we schedule. A lot of the managers in every department arrange various catch-up calls throughout the week and whatever, just so you don't feel isolated at all. And obviously at the moment, the majority of our offices are closed. But if there is anyone who feels like, for any well-being reasons, that they'd rather be in an office than be at home, then the option to discuss that with the partner of the office to see if that's a solution that works best for you is open. And I think that's one of the things that I've taken as being one of the really big positives recently, is that you feel the support.
Yeah, and on the mental health first aid champions, it's an accredited course through Mental Health First Aid England. It's not just like an RSM training course that we've run ourselves. It's a official qualification through Mental Health First Aid England, and I did the course myself recently. It was really good, and I'm hoping that I can get something out of it and help people. But yeah, the thing about the office is really good, that if people are struggling, that we're not. I feel like a lot, because I work in HR, so I see it happening. I feel like we know who people are that could be at risk, that might be a bit more vulnerable and at home alone. I feel like there's a really good network there to make sure those people are doing okay. And we're really conscious of our students that join us, that we obviously don't know them as well because they're new, and they've got a lot on the plate. They're starting a new job, with doing exams and all sorts in this new world. So we've got a lot of groups set up. So we always have our buddy scheme, which we've carried on doing. We've set up study groups, and like Charlotte said, a lot of team meetings and chats going on. So we're really definitely try to look after people the best we can.
Fantastic, that's great. I mean, I apologise since I'm looking down, because I'm also typing into the Q&A, so I'm not trying to do my emails while I'm listening to you. So just clarification from a student. Now, this may be because I can't see who the students are, because most of them aren't displaying their names. They're saying, I think this is a reference to the FHL when you talked about the placements. That was very helpful. They're just clarifying that placements aren't open to finalists, but just for undergraduates. So can you just address that one? And actually, that would be really helpful for RSM as well.
Yes, the placements are for people that are doing a sandwich year in the degree. Yeah.
I do know, I think it's more of a thing at FHL, but I have heard of people doing placements at in the RSM office as well. I know we had a girl in our team do a placement last summer, and she was then offered the role now for August coming this year. So she's already met all of us, worked with all of us, so we all know her. She has a little bit of experience in the role, so she almost has a little bit of a head start when she comes back in August now. And she also had the pleasure of not having to stress about a job when she graduates, because she already had an offer there.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you mentioned this, actually, because I knew I needed to bring this up. So in Stoke, we're going to have some summer interns in audit. So you still go through the same process. They're not live on the website yet, but they should be coming on anytime soon. We were told that they'd be ready for January, but we've just had to tweak the job description and stuff. So they should be on anytime soon. So again, it's just keeping an eye on them coming live on the website. So we'll have some summer interns for Stoke. You follow the same processes as you would if you were joining the grad scheme, but if you get onto it, then if you do well, you can be offered a graduate placement. Like it's another girl called Charlotte from last year who came back, so she got a head start and knew what she was doing when she joined. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for those as well as other roles.
Yeah, that's great. That's really, really helpful, because I think internships, placements, work experience, the language is quite confusing, isn't it? So actually just clarifying what you mean by that's really, really, really helpful. I've got a question here. Well, before I forget, there's somebody here who's just said thank you. So they haven't got a question, they just want to say thank you very much to both of you. So I'll pass that on before I forget, because that's the nicest kind of non-question. And then I've got a very specific question about whether there's an opportunity to network or communicate with current graduates working at RSM, apart from today, of course, because today we've been able to do that with Charlotte, haven't we?
Just personally, I have a LinkedIn profile, and I think the last time I did a talk at Staff's Uni, I had quite a few students connect with my profile after that. So if people want to connect with my LinkedIn, like I said, my name's Charlotte Savage, then I'm more than happy for people to do that. And if you have any questions, just give me a message on there and I can answer them as best as I can.
Yeah, I always try to bring a student with me because I know that Charlotte is much more interesting than me. So I always try and bring someone along. So yeah, so feel free to connect with Charlotte. And like I say, if you are successful for a role, you do get given a buddy who'll be on the scheme. So they'll either be a graduate or a graduate or a school leaver, but more than likely if you're coming in as a grad. So then you'll have that point of contact to ask, you know, just what is it like to work here, sort of thing, if you're successful. But yeah, definitely, if Charlotte's happy to answer any questions, feel free. But equally, I'm the same. Because Charlotte's in busy season at the moment, so if you want to ask me anything the same, I'm more than happy to always try and find out for you.
And are you on LinkedIn as well, Alice? Being cheeky,
yeah.
Just
yeah, I regularly post updates on new roles as well. So it's yeah.
That's really.
And sometimes I just share roles where we've not had many applicants to try and get extra ones in. So any that you see me post, obviously I don't post every day. So if there's one you want to apply for, then go for it. Don't rely on just what I'm posting. But yeah, you might see some extra roles come up.
That's Jennifer. It's been such a useful session, incredibly helpful. We have actually come to the end of the hour. Normally we have some time left, but actually we're about 3 minutes from, and we've got more events. Actually, I know students may have to go because they may be going to another event. There were 2 questions I just wanted to ask you briefly that might help students. You talked a lot about strength-based interviews and strength-based assessments, and as recruiters and careers consultants, we talk about strengths all the time, but students don't. Could you just explain what you mean by strengths?
So the things that you're good at, the things that you can back up with an example, things that you've got experience with. That's what I'd say your strengths are. But equally, you can score so well on a question even if you explain that you're not good at something. It doesn't, just because something isn't your strength, it doesn't mean that you've answered a question badly. Because it might be that you're not. Oh, I can give an example now. If I was in an interview now, I could easily say I'm not very good on Excel. I didn't have to use it in my previous role, so I've had to get up to scratch. So I've gone and got help and gone on some training courses. But so that isn't my strength. I don't think I'm good at that. But I've got a problem and I've got a solution, and that to me, if it was an interview scenario, would be a really strong answer, because rather than me thinking, oh, I can't do this, I'll get someone to do it for me, or I'll sit and cry about it, I've said, no, I need to learn this to be good at my job. So it doesn't always have to be something you're good at to think it's a strong answer.
Fantastic. I mean, I think for any students, it's probably worth doing a bit of research on strength-based interviews and getting some help with that. Because, to be honest, in some ways, it's the same as skills, with a slightly different twist, isn't it? So, but I think students have been brought up to think about skills, and now it's shifted to strength. So that's really helpful, Alice. I will end there because I know our techies might have to go and set up the next session. So, really, really appreciate that. That's been so helpful, as you can tell, for all the questions that you've had. And thank you very much for saying that we can connect with you on LinkedIn, because I think you'll be having a lot more LinkedIn requests. We apologise.
I've already had, I think, 4 come through in the last minute.
Wow, that's impressive. Well, it's definitely not me because I'm still here. But thank you very, very, very much. I think probably we can end it now, Dan, if Dan's still there. Otherwise, I may have to end this. But thank you to all the students as well. Thank you for asking those questions, because for everyone that asks a question, that helps other students that haven't asked that question, but we're thinking about that question, because sometimes we don't want to ask things that we think might sound stupid, even when they're not stupid at all. So thank you very much. Really, really appreciated.